There's a new spin on casual dining near Drake University. Lucky Horse Beer and Burgers. Craveable faves, flatbreads, delicious burgers, frozen cocktails, and crazy cool vibe. Get to Lucky Horse Beer and Burgers today.
The morning news on YourIowa.com is brought to you by the Commission on U.S. Territories, striving for equal representation around the globe, and by Keep Iowa First, committed to keeping the Iowa caucuses the first in the nation contest in selecting the presidency of the United States. And now, here's your host, Brent Rothke.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing today? It is Thursday. Thursday, and around here is garbage day. So that's our big. Sometimes a pandemic, you lose sight of what's going on in the world. I am grateful to this program for, starting my day with a big smile. And you folks, it is. I love your emails. My email is just right there, Roski@YourIowa.com. Let me know how we're doing. Let me know what you'd like to see on this show. And if you'd like to support, definitely let me know that as well. Or if you think you should be on the program, we have folks all over the world on this show and are so grateful to each and every one of them. Today, this footage right here, we're going to have on this videographer who was there at the Capitol Riot on the 6th, amongst other things. So you're going to want to check that out. A bit of news from California. She says it best. Veronica Maracle, ABC7. I can't believe I'm saying this. Starts every good tweet, in my opinion. I can't believe I'm saying this. A maskless customer was turned away at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Pasadena tonight. So he came back with a gun, held up the kitchen staff, and robbed some chicken, waffles, and syrup. Now, I read that, and I'm like, oh, come on. And then they said, surveillance video coming. There is surveillance video. You can watch this. Folks, don't rob the Roscoe's and Chicken and Waffles. We'll get you some chicken. We'll get you some waffles. Don't rob it. Just that, I feel like that tweet is a bit of a sign of our times. What people are starting to a little bit too much pandemic. It's been going on a little too long. Not enough stimulus, not enough help from the government. People are starting to just say, you know what? And they're going in with a gun to get some chicken. So let's try to stem that if we can. Folks, if you missed The Barn on Monday, boy, what a documentary. That's Auschwitz right there. The folks you see in the picture, that's Carl Shapiro, who, when he was a child, survived the Nazi death camps by hiding out under a barn with 12 other people for 18 months. The director was on Monday. Check that out. Just riveting. Negin Farsad was on. She's hysterical. Watch that. She was voted. Huffington Post called her one of the 50 funniest women in show business right now. It's just, she's fantastic. On Monday, you're going to want to see this. Deborah Willis, The Black Civil War Soldier. This is her brand new book. This is part of our ongoing series honoring Black History Month. Folks, the IDP chair, Representative Ross Wilburn, is going to be on the show. Dr. Franz Whitfield, who you saw on the day Joe Biden was sworn in as president. He was also here for Martin Luther King Day, is going to be on. But just so many others. We've got an acting troupe from Iowa City is going to be on. We've got just so many folks honoring Black History Month, and Monday is going to be a great show with Miss Willis, who incidentally is on the staff at NYU alongside Oscar nominee Sam Pollard, who you remember who he was on with his film MLK FBI. So you're going to want to see that on Monday. And tomorrow, Iowa State Auditor Rob Sand, there he is with his lovely family, is going to be on the show. We're going to talk about, the state auditor's office has not in the past been something that has necessarily stood out. It's not been something that people really paid that much attention to. Certainly in state politics they did, but Rob has definitely taken the office to a different level of awareness. So happy to have on Iowa State Auditor Rob Sand tomorrow. But here we are all the way from the UK. Let's bring her up. Lisa Marks is here. Lisa, how are you doing today?
Twice in 2 days. This is ridiculous. People will talk. Doing good. I'm doing good. I just want you to know my garbage day is Tuesday. And and I missed it this week because I got my Tuesday and Wednesdays mixed up because it's COVID.
Yeah. You miss garbage day. I've done it. That's a big thing, you know. Our one of our in-laws said, I miss garbage day. I got a double full pack. Do you remark, now that we're spending so much time at home, how much garbage you're making I can't believe we're filling up the can every week.
I think I almost have a bag a day, and it's, you know, it's ridiculous. And then the amount of food as well you get through, and you know, it's one of those things that, like, God, I ate out much more than I ever thought I did. You know, there's all those things, and oh my God, I need to learn how to cook better dishes. You know, so
the problem is, though, you cook, then you got all the dishes. You're like, where are all these dishes coming from? There was a great thing I saw on Twitter. It said, there's a new rule at house. Each of my children apparently can take one sip of a cup and then has to go get a new one. Yeah. You got a fresh batch of dishes every 2 hours, it seems like.
It's like that dishwasher is earning its keep right now, I'll tell you that much.
So Lisa is here all the way from Leigh-on-Sea. I think it's my favorite name of any city in the world, Leigh-on-Sea, to talk about Golden Globes. Thank you. So you were here yesterday. So grateful that you could come back today and talk Golden Globes. And I want to just start off with one quick thing here. So yesterday we had on Andreen Ward-Hammond. There she is. And that same day, minutes after we went off the air, Bryan Cranston was nominated for Your Honor, which Andreen co-stars with Bryan Cranston. And I just think that's so neat. You know, we would have certainly talked about it, but I think I ended the broadcast like at 7:42, and those announcements were actually happening while we were just finishing up. So anyway, congratulations to the whole team at Showtime's Your Honor. They were very helpful about scheduling with Andreen. Her publicity team was very helpful. So huge shout out to all of them. That's a big day. You know, some people think, oh, it's just the nominations, it's all fluffy. But the fact is, there's a lot of money. It's a business, and people who work in publicity and promotions, that's their version of a win. That's putting a score up on the scoreboard, is getting a nomination. So well done to them. But Lisa from the UK, you had some things you wanted to talk about today. Let's jump into it.
Let's get involved. I mean, it's an interesting year. It's an interesting year. So let's just, you know, look at this year against a backdrop of COVID and lockdown and everything we've been through, and the way that in the last year we started watching things differently. We can't go to the cinema, and I don't know anyone who's been to the cinema this year. I know they were open for a little while. But for me, the headline, and really the headline around the world, I think, with the Globes, is the fact that there were nominations for 3 female directors for the first time ever. They actually outnumbered men. And so we have Regina King for One Night in Miami, and we discussed that film a couple of weeks ago. We have Emerald Fennell, who wrote and directed and also produced Promising Young Woman. And she actually was a head writer on the 2nd season of Killing Eve. She replaced Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Apparently the two were best pals. So she was involved in that. And Chloe Chow, I think that's how you say, for Nomadland, which stars Frances McDormand. And a very sort of understated look at a woman's life after she loses, you know, everything after the 2008 crash. You know, just lives this nomadic life, very sort of quiet. Sort of, even the trailer, if you watch the trailer, actually you should go and watch the trailer for Nomadland. It is like no other trailer you'll ever see. It's just quiet. She's walking across a camp. You see the back of her. That's it. That's the trailer. You know, it's this is definitely the year where films became a lot more sort of word-led and character-led, which we'll get onto. But the three nominations for the women is a bit of a turning point, I feel.
So No Man's Land is a stunning film. It's fantastic. And I mean, I'm not going to spoil much. I mean, it's her surviving, living in a van, working at the Amazon plant, just day to day. And that really speaks to people. You know, documentaries, there were more documentaries entered in the Oscars this year than any year in the past. People are looking for truth. They're not looking for escapism quite so much. They're looking to see reflections of how things really are. And Emerald Fennell, isn't it? I was like, it can't be the same person. She played Camilla Parker Bowles on The Crown.
Yes.
Not only is she an incredible director, incredible writer, she's an incredible actor. I was like, it can't be the same person. I had to look up like 3 different things because I love The Crown. I watched all the seasons. It's one of the best things out there. And I'm like, That person had time to be a staff writer on a hit show, plus write and direct a movie that now, I mean, this is, boy, you want to talk about her year. Big role on television, on Netflix, and now nominated for Best Director in the Golden Globes. So well done.
I mean, yeah, she was also written a children's book as well, I think, in between on her time off. And she was also in Call the Midwife, which I think is on Netflix. There's some US fans of Call the Midwife, which is a big show over here. But yeah, I have no idea. I looked at her resume and went, how are there 3 of you? How do you have the time to do all of this? So hugely talented lady. So we'll see what happens. And very interesting script, Promising Young Women. It's a sort of revenge tale, and starring Kerry Mulligan, who we talked about yesterday in The Dig, but in a completely different role this time. So yeah, and then also Regina King, who thoroughly deserves that nomination for One Night in Miami. I mean, I thought the direction was exquisite. So,
not only, One Night in Miami, her nomination there, I think you could call that a heritage nomination as well. Looking back at it, an amazing career, and directing her first film, and the Golden Globes, like the Academies, they do have a sense of what's going on in the world, and they like to listen to that, and they like the awards to be some type of reflection of what's going on. And I think, to your comments earlier, this year is even more so. And to your point, Lisa sent an email just before we went on air about how the nominations are so different this year. And why don't you talk about that? What does it mean that what the movies that we're celebrating?
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? They're sort of introspective. We're looking more at sort of the characters of people. I mean, there are no explosions, spaceships, hobbits, or anything going on. Sort of robots, androids, or whatever. It's people, and it's people dealing with real issues here. So we're looking. Promising Young Woman looks at women, sexual assault, really. And, it has a really interesting look at that, and a sort of quite a twisted take, but an interesting take. One Night in Miami looks at, the situation that the sort of the lives of Black people in 1960s and what they faced then, what they're facing now. It holds a mirror up to today. The trial of the Chicago 7, also another, historic piece, very, very talky. It's an Aaron Sorkin film, so obviously there's a lot of dialogue in there. And, Nomadland, again, very stark, very real, very authentic. And it's almost as if people were reaching out, through Netflix or Hulu or Amazon to find something that they could relate to in this last year, where we've all had a lot more time for introspection, to be with our thoughts, with our loved ones, maybe facing, financial difficulties, and, without the distraction of going out and meeting our friends for dinner, work, going to meetings. It's been a complete change for everybody. And I just feel, looking at the nominations, it's completely reflected there. And and that's why art is so important, and that's why cinema is so important, because this is what it does. It comes back at us. And so I think everyone can see something of themselves in these nominations.
And I think the award shows have been coming to terms with the fact that their ratings over the last few years have been going down and down. And my mother would always talk about, they just seem like it's a different, you watch award shows, sometimes it just feels like a different thing as to what people are actually paying attention to. And I think that's maybe reflected in the nominations as well. The Academy actually expanded their membership. They're up over 9,000 members for the first time ever. And they've got a lot more younger people. They've got folks of color now member. They've made a conscious goal to make it a more diverse electorate there in the Academy. So I think that'll be reflected in the Oscar nominations as well. Miss Lisa Marks, the author of Ryan is Ready for You Now, the resident expert of entertainment. Thank you so much for being here for the Golden Globe nominations.
You are welcome.
We talked about doing maybe during the Globes that night, having a special, maybe Sally Kirkland, my buddy who won a Golden Globe, will be on. I don't know, folks. We're going to have to see. Let's
play around with it, see what we can come up with.
Oh, it'd be so fun. They're on the 28th this month, I think. So we got a little bit of time to work it out. Lisa, thank you so much for being on. And folks, normally we would cut to a commercial, but we're going to go straight into our next guest, Brendan Gutenschwager. There he is, all the way. Brendan, where are you coming at us from today?
Today I'm in Michigan.
Michigan. Now you are. I'm going to click your. You know, I don't have a fancy graphic pulled up for you. I had one. I'm sorry, buddy. I had it, you know, I do. I really try to. So Brendan Gutenschwager, and I'm going to show some video right here. Look at this. So Brendan was there at the Capitol, and Brendan, I mean, you are all over the country covering events like this, and it's a bit of a jarring transition today, going from the lightness of the Golden Globe nominations to something like this. But this is, I mean, you know, you watch this footage and you forget it. Everything just feels like television. Everything feels like a movie. But the fact is, you were literally filming this. You were there that day, amongst other things. Since we've got this pulled up on the screen, Brendan, why don't you walk people through the day and what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so that right there is outside of the Capitol building. That was some of those clashes with police before they had breached the interior of the building itself. So basically, you know, the day had started with those speeches over there by the ellipse, and that was where Donald Trump had been speaking, and there were, you know, many people gathered out there. Then they marched to the Capitol right off the bat. As soon as I arrived there, as soon as I was able to start covering things over at that scene, people were clashing with police. There were people yelling, you know, some of the scenes like what you're seeing there on screen right now. You know, pepper spray in the air, people pushing barricades, throwing things. So it really got very intense right off the bat as soon as I got over to the Capitol building, which honestly, even in of itself, that day made things really complicated, because you went from covering what it initially was just kind of like a regular Trump rally, you know, just like speeches and people waving flags and things like that, really not too out of the ordinary, other than that it's happening in DC near the White House like that. And then immediately go over to this scene with people, you know, fighting police and throwing fences and just all that you're seeing right there. It was definitely a very, very chaotic day.
And I think that's maybe lost now in the weeks that have happened since. That it was, I mean, this folks is what you call a melee. This is, and I don't want that to be lost. And, you know, when it just, oh, it's now the insurrection or whatever words people want to use in it. The fact is, you've got, I mean, if you watch this clip, that's an officer. The guy with the hat is senior. He just punched a guy. You've got people throwing canisters at the police there. They're battling for the fencing right there. And like, Brendan, you're in the middle of this crowd. Like, they're spraying right there. So the gentleman is spraying right there. The people are trying to pull away the barricades. So talk about what that's like. You got the gentleman in the cap there trying to block it. But I mean, you got tear gas, you got pepper spray, everything like that. People shoving and pushing. I mean, how are you? Did you get beat up, or what's going on?
Yeah, actually, one of the little known stories about this clip specifically is that right after, and the reason why it cuts out kind of abruptly, even though you can tell that there's still action going on, you might think like, oh, why didn't BG just keep filming? Like, why not? Because I actually got very, very badly maced there, and I was blinded for probably at least a half hour, and I had to step away, and it was very painful. People just pushing and shoving everywhere, as you can imagine. Like you said, I mean, it's just, that entire scene is just one big chaotic, you know, mess there. And so, yeah, it was tough. It was honestly, out of all and I've covered different, you know, moments of unrest or riots and, you know, violent protests, things like that before. So in and of itself, it wasn't unique, but the scale of it and the fact that it was happening right there outside the Capitol building, it was definitely a notch above even things that I had covered before, where, you know, there were unsafe situations. This was something unique in and of itself.
So let's talk about that. I think amazing footage. And again, it takes, you know, someone like you that are just going to get in there and film it. It's just harrowing, incredible footage. So, you know, talk about, you go all over the country filming this sort of thing. Every time I pull up your Twitter feed, you're in a different spot. And folks, just so you know, so he goes by BG on the scene, his Twitter handle. I mean, literally millions of people watch your stuff because, you know, it's interesting. We were just talking about this with Lisa with the Golden Globe nominations. What you're doing in a real, absolutely real sense is filming real-time documentaries about this, and people are looking for truth. They're not looking for a talking head to say what we think about it. They want to make their own choices. So what you're doing, I mean, you are the journalist of the future. You are the journalist of right now. When you got into this line of work, what spoke to you about it? Why did you take this direction with your career?
That was a big reason why I wanted to, actually, was specifically to get the truth out there about what was going on. About 5 years ago, I really started going to some of these rallies and protests and things like that, trying to just get a better idea of what it looked like in person there. Because I would see a news headline saying, oh, this event happened, and maybe there might be like a little snippet showing the speaker, but it didn't really show like what was the crowd like, or what was the audience, what were some of the reactions from the people. And I just wanted to get like a better perspective of it all. So I started going out to these things on my own. Over time, initially I was just kind of sharing that with personal social media. Then I pushed to try to get it out to a more wide audience. And then, really over the last year, with how much interest there's been in so many of these different protests and everything going on, it's ballooned a lot more. And I am grateful for that. And really, it's just been about trying to get the true, news out to the people, and not doing those, partisan talking points or trying to spin people towards one direction or towards another. Because the thing is, there's already such a multitude of voices online or in print or on TV that do that, do I really want to just like come out there and be just like one of a million of those voices, or do I want to do something unique and actually just bring video content? And that's really what's helped to push this forward a lot, is that video content can tell you so much in and of itself. So you don't need me to caption it with some, spin trying to push people towards a certain, line of thinking or ideology. I let the video speak for itself and just kind of put it out there, put neutral captions, just kind of let people know what's going on. And then, people can draw their own conclusions and at least have that information to be able to, make their own decisions on a topic.
And I applaud you for that. Well done, sir, because that is so important. And I don't think we give nearly enough credit to the intelligence of people out there, people watching, to the influencers in all walks of life. And when you've got people like you that are committed to one thing, and that's documenting the truth, I think that is incredibly valuable. The nation needs that. The world needs that. So good for you. Well done. Because so much of this, I mean, you've created your own career. You're an entrepreneur. And that is not, there's one thing about, getting a job with all the perks and working at a TV studio and all that kind of stuff, and flying first class. And I did 10 years at NBC Universal. I was the creative director at the NBC Stations Group in Burbank. So living that life is fantastic, but you've decided, you're not bound by, the rules of, say, the sales department wants you to shoot it this way, or they don't want you to. I mean, I directed a piece for the Olympics once and have footage of a protest, a small violent clash that never saw the light of day because we were there on an advertiser's dollar through NBC. And it's so interesting that, your task, your mission is really, again, to talk about the truth. And where have you been over the last couple of weeks? You were in Seattle? You were in, you're all over, right?
Yeah, even since January 6th, since the DC stuff, I covered Seattle, Portland, Tacoma, and Rochester, New York as well. Yeah, it's been a very busy. Oh, and Lansing. Lansing also had a brief protest as well. So things are still going on. It's not quite as like every single day as it was in July, August, September. There it was just like nonstop. I would be gone for weeks on end and never see anything that wasn't like a hotel bed or just sleeping in a car. But yeah, it's still been very busy, and really like the Northwest, I know there's still a lot of activity going on, as there has been, especially in Oregon and Washington there. Yep. And
is Michigan kind of your home base then?
Usually, yeah. Usually either like Michigan area or Chicago area. So you'll see a lot of like Midwest oriented stuff if I'm not over out in one of those other places.
Well, again, Brendan Gutenschwager, and we'll just, And I'm not just blowing smoke here, Brendan. I mean, this is the type of work that could, win you a Pulitzer. I mean, this is because you're there. It's, and you see other camera folks. I know that day, the AP camera team, all their gear got smashed and all that sort of thing. But, you're kind of just running and gunning, right? What kind of, I mean, are you one of the guys, wearing a helmet, or what are you decked out in something like this?
Well, the thing is, I do have protective equipment like that for these situations. Unfortunately, for this specific situation, because things escalated so quickly, and I had already been out covering the morning protest or morning rally over at the Ellipse and all of that, I didn't expect it to get this escalated this quickly. So I didn't actually have a helmet, and a lot of the other personal equipment that I otherwise would have, because some places like Portland, for example, you go into it, there's a good chance there's going to be tear gas, and that ahead of time, so you can bring the proper equipment, bring goggles, bring a tear gas mask, things like that. For this, I don't think, hardly anybody expected it to be the extent that it was there. So it was very dangerous, and one of those where I really had to constantly be on the lookout around, make sure that people aren't throwing something that's going to then just hit me from behind, because people are throwing things aiming for police. And then, it just so many things like that where you really had to keep your head on a swivel and just try to make sure that you don't get injured in the process of trying to cover this.
Brendan Gutenschwager, buddy, you're my hero. You're out there. You're doing good work. And again, our country needs folks like that, committed to just telling the truth. And if again, video tells the story, and then other folks after the fact. But for you to actually be getting the footage and all like that, well done. Stay safe, and so grateful you could be on the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Great talk with you.
You bet. And folks, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with Belle DuChene. She's going to talk about the big game on Sunday. We'll be right back.
Every morning, millions of Americans are joined together by a simple act. They get up and they go to work. They do it without fanfare, without complaint, when times are easy and when times are hard. And right now, times are indeed hard. Because this morning, there were also millions of Americans who didn't go to work. We're hurting, we are mourning, and we are struggling. At times, it can feel like we've never been more separate from one another, in more ways than one. But we can change that. And we will. Because we can choose to see that we've been connected all along. Connected by a love for this country. By a continual drive to improve upon it. Connected by the shared dignity, the quiet respect of an honest day's work. Yes. This morning, millions of Americans woke up and they went to work. And we did too.
Folks, let's pull her on. There she is, publicist extraordinaire. Belle, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you? Are you keeping warm?
No. Folks, I'm looking out the window. It's something I tell my friends a lot when I talk to them back in California. It looks like one of those cold and flu commercials with the wind and the trees, and it's just gray and snow, and it's tough this time of year. It's one of the reasons I started the show on January 1st. I'm like, I'm going to need some help to get through with pandemic. So thanks to you for being with us this morning. Always great to see you. And we get to talk about funner things. Boy, Brendan Gutenschwager was just on. Obviously, we're not afraid to talk about serious things here, but a good smile and a laugh is just as important sometimes. So we're here to talk Super Bowl, huh?
Super Bowl, yes. I
this
think
Sunday it's happening. And you sent over an email with some thoughts, and I just thought that was fantastic. Why don't you walk us through, kind of Belle's idea of the big game? What's going on?
Well, obviously, I know that Giselle's husband is doing something this weekend.
Giselle's husband.
I think it'll be a really fun game to watch. Chiefs versus the 49ers. I'm excited to watch it. But we're always curious, what's the entertainment going to be like? And so there are some little things that leak out online. You can kind of figure out what's going on. But I wish I could be there because Miley Cyrus will perform at the first TikTok tailgate ever, which I think will be so fun to see. I mean, how is that going to look? It'll be really interesting. Are people going to be there with masks, like jumping up and down? Who knows? I'm not sure, but she's doing this event for healthcare workers. And it's interesting because the theme of this year's Super Bowl seems to be kind of, thinking of other people instead of just spending money for entertainment's sake, which is great. So obviously we know National Anthem will be sung, and Jasmine Sullivan will be doing a duet with Eric Church. So it's like soul meets country, which I think will be really interesting. A lot of diversity in the lineup this year, which is great. We'll hear America the Beautiful, of course, but then everyone is talking about the commercials and the Pepsi halftime show. Do you remember what happened last year at the halftime show?
What? No, I don't know if I saw it last year.
J-Lo and Shakira performed.
Oh, yep. Okay. Yep. I'm sorry. I'm not as up on my sports as I should be. Yep. I remember.
Yeah, it was, I think people talked about it for a solid 8 days, which in entertainment is a long time. But people thought it was insane that these two women were, making their moves on stage, which was sort of interesting. And it's almost like we had the whole mishap a number of years ago with
I saw that happen live. The Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson mishap. I remember.
Yeah.
Mishap. I'm giving you air quotes on that.
Remember how long we talked about that? This was the same thing last year where they were like, these women are moving in ways that our children shouldn't have been seeing. And I was like, listen, the Super Bowl's never been branded as a family event. So have the kids go get a cookie. I don't know if you don't want them to watch it. But I think this year will be a little bit more toned down. It's The Weeknd who will be playing. If you think of the Canadian artist, The Weeknd, I think it'll be a really fun show and different and just kind of more of a family event actually this year. So you're saying, so Miley Cyrus is playing a different event, but not on the main stage, you're saying? Yeah, she's just doing the pregame show.
Oh, a TikTok tailgate.
Tailgate.
TikTok is blown up, and you watch the thing and you're like, I mean, I get it. It is, you want to talk about the most easily digestible 9 seconds at a time or 20 seconds at a time, but it's like, there was an episode of The Simpsons a million years ago where Homer Simpson is the judge of the film festival. And there's one of the short films is football in the groin. And he goes, oh, it works on so many levels. Well, that's kind of what TikTok is, isn't it? I mean, it's like, it's just this stupid little punchline-y stuff. And yeah, all of a sudden you're like, I just spent 10 minutes dumbing myself down.
10 minutes. If you have the willpower to click out after 10, teach me your ways. I will look down, look up, and I'm like, what happened to the last 45 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
And what you just said, I mean, that's why, tons of money are getting thrown at it right now. Advertisers, sponsored things, placement. But yeah, so TikTok tailgate, if they got Miley Cyrus, obviously they're blowing, I don't know, call it 10 million, maybe more.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But what's interesting too is the ad spend this year. So the big deal, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a leak of the Michael B. Jordan Alexa app commercial, and women are losing their mind. I want to tease it. And I hate to ruin everything, but he has this commercial where he is the Alexa voice. Oh. And women everywhere are just like, is this actually happening? Could we have his voice in our home? This would be amazing. So people are looking forward to that. There's a Cheetos commercial with Ashton Kutcher and his wife Mila. And Ashton, of course, is from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So it's kind of fun to see that. And then the Mahomes breakfast cereal boxes at Hy-Vee. So Hy-Vee came out with 8 different cereal boxes that on the back side, when put together side by side, make a collage of Mahomes because they're big Chiefs fans in Kansas City. And people are also losing their mind. I found 8 boxes that were pre-assembled on eBay for $150. And we haven't even gotten to game day yet. So if the Chiefs win, can you imagine? Like, maybe we should go invest, go grab some cereal and see if we could retire early. Sounds like a good idea.
So you've got to go hunt down each different square of the, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Boy, you want to talk about smart marketing right there. It used to be, you just bought the Jenner box of, my box of Wheaties, I did it. No. Now you got to buy 8 boxes. Oh my goodness.
8. Everything is extra in 2021. But what's kind of cool too is I always think about the Budweiser commercials. That's number one when I think of for Super Bowl. And guess what? They are not advertising this year. Coca-Cola is not advertising. It's a whole list of companies that are not actually going to do that ad spend, and they're going to invest it into other initiatives for COVID-19 or in other areas that need funding, which is very interesting and kind of heartwarming, but very interesting. What are the commercials going to be like then? Who knows?
Well, and folks, it's all about buying eyeballs. Super Bowl, literally 50 million people might watch it on the day, let alone after the fact. And if you have a Super Bowl commercial, I directed a Super Bowl commercial that aired in Chicago, and a couple of things. It was for Uniball pens with Golden Globe winner Esapatha Murkerson, and it was, from the day you're shooting it, I had the guy who filmed all of Twin Peaks was my director of photography, my producer. Wrote the movie. Anyway, big. We filmed on Wall Street, and the whole time they're like, okay, this is going to be a Super Bowl commercial. So it influences the whole process of it. And but at the end of the day, what you're buying is awareness. You're buying attention. So if they could make the calculus that said, hey, if we announce now that we're not going to be in Super Bowl, we're going to get exactly what you're talking about, attention for us being forward thinking, community thinking. We're going to get this. We're going to get maybe not as much attention. But we're going to get better attention. So it's all, it's all a calculus. It's all, but yeah, for them to turn away like that, and the ads. I think there were 6 million for a 30-second last year. I'll have to look into it. And folks, don't hold me to that, but I'll look into it, because every year I do look it up as to how much it is, and literally the money the NFL and the TV partner rakes in just off the commercials that year is larger than the GDP of some countries. It blows the budget of, the Red Cross yearly budget could be made. Things like that, when you think about, okay, it's really a 30-second commercial that's kind of funny and it was kind of witty. And at the end of the day, it can be really, when so many people are struggling right now, good for them to make that decision. And I've always said, there's plenty of money in this country, but only certain people get it. So we've just got to start thinking about ways to even out the scales a little bit. And exactly that's one of it. And, we could jump into politics chat here anytime, but we won't do that. We'll keep it light today.
No, I want to see receipts at some point. It's social capital to say we're going to do this, we're going to support the initiative. And I kind of am getting to the point where I want to see the receipts. I want to see what actually happened. I want to see the results. And, there are a lot of good people working for nonprofits around here. And I work with those folks quite often. And so it's funny. It's like, you don't know how far $100 can go for a nonprofit or initiative. So think about millions, what that could do for people. And so I'm not saying I want Coca-Cola to show me the receipt technically, but it's like, I want to see what's going on, what's happening. And I'm hoping the news could be some good news about things like that, because people could really use something positive right now. So, but let's see it. Let's see what happens. I do know that Uber Eats will be doing a lot of commercial work during the Super Bowl, which will be kind of interesting, and just kind of, it's sort of like a reflection of how America is doing. COVID was really bad for some sectors and some types of businesses. But if you were the guy making hand sanitizer or toilet paper, you had a really good year, right? So I think those commercials we see will be kind of indicative of who had a good year and who maybe didn't. I'm not an analyst, but you can kind of get a look at financials from that perspective, I think, too.
What an interesting topic of conversation. Folks, I don't, we have quick little emails, the folks that are on the show, but I try to keep it fresh to me and fresh to you. Mm-hmm. What an interesting thing to think about, those Uber Eats, obviously in this market. I know that the Uber drivers, there's not enough fares. So if you're not doing the bar crawl after midnight on Friday and Saturdays, the Uber drivers in this town really struggle. And obviously, you've got and they were fighting to get some union rights and all that sort of thing. But then the people who have all the money, the stockholders of the company, the executives, they're going to blow millions of it to advertise in the thing so people use it, but to their own employees. And I was CNBC had this thing about businesses leaving California, and one of the instances they used in San Francisco is that there's now a new tax. If it used to be in the 40s that your worker to CEO ratio is about 1 to 40, maybe 1 to 50. Well, now it's a target is 1 to 423, I think. The CEO makes 400 times what his average worker makes. So what San Francisco is doing right now is taxing that difference. They're saying, and what I tell people all the time, let's have everybody get rich. Everyone could be a millionaire. You're just not going to make billions at the top. You're going to make millions, and it all kind of equals out. So what an interesting topic of conversation that Budweiser said no ad this year, but Uber Eats, that is definitely facing some negative attention right now based on what money's actually getting back to their drivers, is saying, oh, heck with it, let's spend the money. What an interesting, anyway, that's fascinating.
Well, think about Hy-Vee during COVID did very well because we all started cooking again. Yeah. So they did really well. And so they're investing back and using this for a branding moment, which is great. So it's money circulating, which is good, right?
And I'll be honest, I didn't really think too much about the business of sports until I started working at NBC Universal, and I ended up directing over 200 commercials for the Olympics. I was all over the world directing Olympic commercials, and the hockey league went on there. And it wasn't until I started working there that it's just another piece of content to the studios. Whatever's drawing the eyeballs, that's great. If it's news, if it's sports, if it's scripted, and what we're talking about here, again, buying eyeballs. That's what the whole industry exists to do. They were called soap operas because they sold soap, these little stories during the day. So anyway, the Super Bowl is the world's biggest soap opera. It just so happens they put on little jerseys and they run around and throw a football and all that. But I hope, and God bless them, they're all talented and skilled and all that. But let's start maybe looking at an athlete doesn't need to make $20 million a year. Maybe they make $10 million, and a teacher, instead of making $35,000, now makes maybe $80,000, so they can actually run a household on that. Let's start actually thinking about that. That's how we're going to keep this country strong into the next 200 years. Boy, who knows what's going to happen in a conversation, Belle? We just put you out, and all of a sudden we're talking about what's best for the nation.
I love it. It's just how we roll. I like it.
It's how we roll. Folks, we've got a big show tomorrow. State Auditor Rob Sand is going to be with us. And also Saul Lieberman is with the Institute for Political Innovation. There's a brand new book called The Politics Industry that Catherine Gill and Michael Porter wrote. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about gerrymandering. All that is tomorrow. But Belle, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Have fun this weekend.
You too. We will. We love having Belle on the show. We'll have you back. We'll talk about, maybe we'll do Super Bowl recap next week. We'll talk about, and I tell you what, if Michael B. Jordan was on an Alexis, I might actually buy one, because that would, the voice right now makes me always feel like, oh, what did I do wrong? Did you do that? But Michael B. Jordan be like, okay, yeah, let's hear what he has to say. Anyway, folks, thank you for tuning in today. We will see you right back here tomorrow morning. Have a great day.